So I'm Michael Judd. I'm an avid pawpaw grower, but I'm also a permaculturist, edible landscaper, and I grow all kinds of stuff in very unique ways, low input ways that give high returns. So I'm going to be touching on some of those permaculture ideas, but really focusing on the pawpaw. So the pawpaw, you guys are trying really good pawpaws today, which is one of the best reasons to have a pawpaw fest. We have a pawpaw festival at our homestead, which is in Frederick, Maryland. We're zone 6B, 7A, pretty parallel to here. And all of this is pawpaw country. This is what we call the pawpaw belt. This is just perfect prime pawpaw country. That said, you still want to get the right conditions set for your pawpaws. They're not just going to grow anywhere around here. They still have the right conditions, and we're going to talk about that as well. But the glory of the cultivated pawpaw, the good genetics, very much thanks to Neil Peterson. This is Susquehanna. Did anyone try Susquehanna today? Right? Did you like it? That's my favorite. Neil's too, I think. And so there's a spectrum of pawpaw flavors, all the way from the light colored flesh of something like Shenandoah or Sioux or Mango. Those are cultivars. Going all the way through about the midway point, you got Allegheny. Coming all the way down, you got PA Golden, and you got Susquehanna. You have a lighter, a little less aromatic. They're all sweet, but on the lighter side, you're going to be lighter notes, and then as you go further and further, you're going to have more pungent flavors. So I like that. I like durian, so I'm definitely going to want that, that richer. Not to compare. I shouldn't compare durian and pawpaws at all, but anyway, I'm rambling. So this is my pawpaw possibilities map, right? Everyone hears about the pawpaw being native to this region, but we're talking about one of the most adaptive species in the world, certainly in the temperate world. I mean, there's no other plant that has basically migrated, into the cold. That's a tropical plant in the north. So the pawpaw is basically a tropical fruit that grows here in the north. Nothing else is like it. It's one of the reasons we're here. It's very, very unique. And part of that adaptability is showing up as people, humans. Mammalian monkey megafauna. That's us. I just read that today. I thought that was great. Are the main spreaders of this. Traditionally, it was the sloths and the mastodons and the rivers spreading them throughout the regions. Right now, it's us, and people are growing them throughout the continent. Some parts of southern Ontario and Canada, and they're big in Europe now. It's exploding in Europe. I mean, mega nurseries are pumping out trees. Japan, South Korea. I mean, this is now becoming pretty much a worldwide phenomena, and rightly so. It's an epic fruit where you have the right conditions. So this is a possibilities map. Within this, you still need to meet the right conditions. It's many cofactors in that. Basically, anything with a huge leaf, like the pawpaw, needs consistent moisture, right? What's kind of cool is you can look at a tree and you can tell kind of where it adapted, what kind of site and soil by the size of its leaf, right? Small leaves typically are from drier climates because they're not they have to protect their evapotranspiration, their loss of moisture, right? You get something like a pawpaw with a big old leaf like that, that it's developed in a very moist environment where it has consistent moisture. So you need to make sure you have that consistent moisture. Now, you also want to make sure your soil is draining. So don't think, I'm going to put it in a wet spot, because pawpaw roots will ferment and rot if the soil stays consistently wet. So a lot of times you'll hear about them or see them growing, by the streams and by the creeks, but you'll often see them on a bank that drains near all that moisture. That's a nice sweet spot. Or in the floodplains that drain, right? So along with having consistent moisture, that goes with being protected by strong winds, right? Strong winds it's gonna pull that moisture out. It's gonna desiccate them. They're not gonna be happy. And that strong wind will also shred that big leaf. That big leaf's like a big fan out there. It's gonna get shredded. So if you have all the other conditions but you have strong wind, they're not gonna thrive. So plant your windbreaks. Get your willows out there, get your bush fruits, get your goomies out there, get those tough characters that'll break that wind, and then plant your pawpaws on the inside of that windbreak. If you guys got a windy site, you should be planting windbreaks no matter what. just for your life, your house, yourselves, your animals, and anything else you plant. Wind is very, very hard on anything, right? Willows are amazing. There's over 400 types of willows, right? So there's willows for almost every site and every condition. So don't just think about that weeping willow. There's tons, every size, from like a foot tall, 12, 15 feet, tons of willows. Just stick them in the ground as a cutting, and you'll start to get a windbreak, right? So think about your windbreak when you're thinking about your water retention. Spacing, I design for neglect. I figure that's usually what happens, even with the best intentions. So 12 feet, you could go 15 feet between them, and that's if you never prune your pawpaws and they grow into, in full sun, they'll be a beautiful pyramid-shaped tree, 15, 20 feet, potentially 25 feet, similar, breadth. And so if you never prune them, you have enough space. You want to keep them within 30 feet of each other for cross-pollination. So I would say 12, 15 to 30 feet max for that cross-pollination, right? And you do need two genetically different pawpaws. It's not a male-female thing, it's just cross-pollination. So that could be any two seedlings. Even from the same fruit, you could grow that seed out and those two would cross-pollinate each other, or two different grafted cultivars, or a seedling and a grafted cultivar, as long as they can cross-pollinate with each other and they're within that 30 feet. Also, if it's super windy, that's really hard for your pollinators to get in there as well. Gnats and spiders and all these shady characters are the ones that are pollinating pawpaws. So they need that more stagnant, zone to be able to help you pollinate as well, right? What's really interesting about the pawpaw is it will send down if it's given the opportunity, a 9-inch deep tap root before it'll even send up a shoot, right? So a lot of times you're thinking, oh, my pawpaws aren't my seed's not germinating, but it is. It'll send down that shoot long before it starts to send up its top, right? I've got a couple tricks in my book, For the Love of Pawpaws, where you can germinate seeds in 14 days. If you are trying to, germinate them at room temperature or out in the ground, you could be looking at a couple of months before you see a shoot come up, right? Which is fine. But if you want, there are ways to jumpstart that. You want to keep your seeds consistently moist. So if you're eating pawpaws today, and clean them all off, get all that flesh off. You don't want to leave any flesh on the seed because that'll ferment and get funky. But you don't want it to dry out. It's fine till you get home in your pocket. But when you get home, put it in like a Ziploc bag, spritz it with water. If you want to put some other medium in there that stays moist, you can do that. And then you put it in your refrigerator. Poke a couple holes in your bag. And then put that in your refrigerator for 3 months or longer, right? Then you can pull them out, and that will have stratified them. That will imitate, the winter time. They need that to trigger to germinate, right? If you do that, pawpaw germination rate is very high. So when we talk about seed germination, some seeds have low germination. Pawpaws have very high germination rates, which is great, as long as you've taken care of them every step of the way. So you could get 90+%, germinating for you, right? But it's very fragile too, If you just barely touch that, it'll snap, right? It's very fleshy. So you want to handle them with care if you're going to be moving them. They don't like to be moved. They don't like that taproot to be messed with. They're like nut trees, It's like, or persimmons, American persimmons, don't mess with that root. I tell people bigger's not better when it comes to growing, for buying pawpaw trees or for, growing them out. I actually germinate mine in the spring and I'll plant them in the fall or the winter, right? Or that early next spring, so that I'm not messing with the expression of that root at all, right? Oftentimes when you're buying a pawpaw tree, if it's like 3 or 4 years old and it's in a little pot, it's been constricted. That's going to show up later in its life. It won't be as strong. It'll be more disease prone, more insect prone, right? So you want to buy young, healthy roots. And that goes for any tree, right? Shrubs are a little different. They're a little more resilient in that way. But you want to, when you're buying a fruit tree or a nut tree, look for small trees, young trees with full root expression. You're not getting ahead by getting something that's bigger. That younger tree, well established, will outgrow that other one in about 4 or 5 years, and it'll be much healthier in the long run. So bigger is not better when it comes to these trees. Along that note, I grow them out in 14-inch deep tree pots. Again, I try to plant them within a year, 2 years max. But even 2 years in the pot will start to show up as certain types of stress for it, because it's sending down a deep root. It'll send down that root, for the first 3 years, and then when if it's happy, then the top will start to grow very quickly. But for the first couple of years, don't look for much growth above ground. It's really all going on down below, especially with the pawpaw. And I grow mine out in a shade house in full sun. I do all my trees like that. As a small nursery that I am, I'm very permaculture with it in the sense that I have very low input, and I don't water my nursery, period. And for someone to say that has a nursery that they don't water their plants, you probably never even heard that. Shade cloth, deep pots, tons of wood chips, tons of moisture held in there. You design it right, you don't have to keep putting inputs in. And I'll talk about that when you're planting as well. So much of the information out there is based on high inputs. The universities and all these, commercial outfits, they're willing to put in tons of energy and inputs and materials, but you don't have to do that. Pawpaws are actually, I'm going to say, not really photosensitive. People will say you have to grow them in the shade for the first couple of years. I've had pawpaws grow in full sun from seed in the juicy spot, basically at the base of my hugelkultur beds. Our whole homestead's juicy, so we have a fest as well, and people are always chucking seeds, and the raccoons are spreading them around. I'm like, oh, look, there's a new one, and they're growing up in full sun from seed and no problem, right? But typically what's happening, people are buying pawpaws, then they're going through a stress period of being transplanted, and that sun is just like, whoa, that's just too much, right? So it is good to shade them. I grow all my pawpaws in full sun. You want full production, you need full sun, but you need to give them what they need in that condition. So when you're transplanting and putting them out there, you can create a temporary shade structure. Typically, once they get past 3 years, the leaf will change. It'll go from looking soft to being leathery, and that's kind of got a maturity to it. And it'll be able to handle that full sun as long as it's got plenty of consistent moisture. So really what it's all about is consistent moisture versus that sunlight. So shade cloth over, a tomato cage, get creative, but what I hear a lot of people saying is, oh, I thought I had to plant it in the shade, so I put it under my oak tree, or I put it there and it's not doing anything, right? So just know that full sun is ideal when you're meeting its conditions. Mike's Deluxe sheet mulch. Sheet mulch is like lasagna gardening. It's just layering your organic matter. This is transitioning what's usually like, crappy soil, lawn, weeds into something that's fungal rich organic matter for your soil. You're feeding it and you're just layering it on top of the soil. So you're not digging, you're not working too hard, you're collecting cardboard, which everyone's got these days, wood chips, straw, mulch, manure, all of these items. You want to layer it, and ideally you do it in advance. So you're going home today and like, oh, I'm going to plant some pawpaws, maybe I'll do it next year. Today you go home and you create your patch, so that soil starts to transition, it starts to get juicy, so when you do come back to plant, it's got more of what the tree needs. It's going to have fungal networks, it's going to have consistent moisture. Make those patches. I make mine at least 8 feet in diameter, and that's giving you, because if you just do like a little dinky ring like in your lawn around your fruit tree and it's dry out, that soil right there, it might be moist under here, but that soil right there is just going to suck it right out. You need to go big and you need to go deep, 10, 12 inches high with your organic matter. It'll drop. It won't stay that high. It'll drop. And if you go that high, it'll kill what's underneath it. It'll turn that grass and weeds into organic matter and nutrient-rich food for your soil, right? But you haven't done much, right? That's the beauty of it. You're just chucking stuff down. You've probably done this already. If you left a board outside or cardboard and you leave it there and you come back and pick it up, it's like full of worms and everything's going on. It's all moist under there. That's basically what you're imitating, right? And there's different recipes in both my books for this. So a food forest is a common permaculture practice, working with perennials. And the idea is that you're creating a companion plant, typically perennials, that support your main producer right? Whether it's fruits, nuts, whatever you're planting, instead of putting it out there all by itself, you're creating companion plants with it. Things that draw in, pollinators, things that are insect habitat for beneficial insects, things that fix nitrogen through their roots. You're planting your nitrogen in the same spot. You're fertilizing them by planting that. Mulch plants, things that you can chop and drop, or things that will just pulse and feed the soil for you. So by doing a little bit of design up front, your plant, your tree will have what it needs without your constant inputs. This stuff works great, really does. You can also shape your landscape. This actually is a part of an app I created it's on Apple right now. It's called the Fruit Patch app. If you want, it's free. It helps design different patches, and it has some of my favorite fruits in it. So this is one of our young food forests. So you create a patch, and then you can say, okay, well, if I'm planting pawpaws, I'll do a patch here, and I'll go 12, 15 feet, and I'll do another patch. And I'll do another patch, and maybe I'll do some nut trees, so I'll go 40 foot between them, or maybe I'll put a pawpaw between those. This is how you begin to build a more dynamic food forest, simply one patch at a time. If you start learning about food forests, you might be like, oh man, I can't handle all this information, I don't know what to do, and you do nothing. Or you can be like, hey, how about if I just do it one patch at a time, and you can design the mature spacing. So these patches started out with my deluxe sheet mulch. You could just do wood chips, period. Just boom, just dump, a huge amount of wood chips that'll be like 12 inches tall by like 8 feet wide, and just leave it. You could cover that with straw if you wanted it to break down faster. But you could just start doing these patches and like, okay, well, I'm going to come back and plant this at a different time. You're just setting the stage, and you've got a design set up for doing this. Because typically people will plant things too closely. They're like, oh, I got a peach tree here and an apple tree there and a pawpaw here, and they're all like within like 10 feet of each other. Know the mature spacing, create your patches, and then when you come back, you're going to have that all set up for you. It'll make it easier for your brain. And then you can go ahead and plant around that because you've created a juicy spot, especially while your trees are young. You've got that full sun. If you don't have deer and critters, you could do strawberries. If you do have deer and critters, you're going to want to do like aromatic herbs and things that the deer don't eat around them. You could put gooseberries in there. You can play with that. My books really give good examples of what you can do with that. Or you can do what I do, since I have about 3 acres of food forest to manage. I put in perennial ground covers. This is running comfrey, not standing, running comfrey. I love it. Great pollinator, great soil cover, holds that grass out. You could do mints if you have deer. Again, you're stacking your functions here. You're creating a green manure, green mulch, living mulch. You're creating a pollinator. You're creating habitat. So this takes the lift off of you. And honestly, we couldn't imitate the benefits of these plants for our main producer at all. Let plants do the work. Design them together. Put them together. So the swale idea, this is passive water harvesting. This is a key design that I use on almost all landscapes, anything especially with any slope to it. If you have any slope, and most things are slopes, especially in West Virginia, that's for sure, your water is just sheeting off. Even after a hard rain, it's not getting into the soil, and your soil is going to be hard and crappy and not full of life. Water is your number one ingredient, your number one fertilizer, and you want that to be held in the soil, right? You want it to be consistently moist and draining. So when you dig out a basin, a ditch basically on contour, which means that it's perpendicular to the slope, it's like holding your arms out to that water. Dig that basin, put that soil on the downhill side, and that becomes your berm. I typically fill my basins in with wood chips, right? Because that just also just builds compost in place and just brings in the fungi. And you can plant right on your berm, or you can plant below your berm. This is going to harvest water for 30, 40 feet down slope. It's going to recharge your water table. This is what's going to make everything that you grow pump. So you need moisture and you need organic matter. Basically, it ends up being fungal habitat. It's all about fungi, really. But this sets the stage for them to thrive. And then ideally, you're getting ground covers, and this is functioning for itself without your constant inputs. There's an upfront jump start that's either digging these swales and getting your mulches out there, and then once that gets established, get your ground covers and get your plant cover going, and then you can walk away, and that system will thrive. I've proven that. I've proven that. When I built my house, it took me 4 years. I think I got a picture of my house in here. I established one of my first fruit forests, put in my swales, my hugelkultur beds. I mulched them and I planted them, and then I forgot them for 4 years, and they thrived. So I've actually proven this to work. All right, these are 2 young pawpaws sitting on a swale, and between them is a nitrogen-fixing plant. This is the indigo bush, Amorpha canadiensis. Deer do not eat it. It's an awesome, vigorous, woody perennial that has these huge flower spikes that just insects love. It's a major pollinator, but it fixes nitrogen for young plants. So when I'm planting, I plant nut orchards and agroforestry systems, and I'm always using this. I'll actually plant it in the same hole when I'm doing my agroforestry systems. But here, I put it between 2 young pawpaws as a nurse plant. The nitrogen nodules, this fixes nitrogen out of the air into nodules on its roots, which the pawpaw is taking and absorbing. It's basically my fertility, and it's also my mulch. So what I'll do after I took this picture is I chopped and dropped this. I chopped this in half. I dropped all of that organic rich and nutrient rich leaf matter right where I needed it, right? So it's my mulch plant. And when I cut that, I also released roots in the bottom with their nitrogen. So it was a mulch and a nitrogen shot in one go. So I put these in all my systems. So when I just go along, I'm just chopping and dropping or clipping and dropping, and I'm stacking my functions, doing very little work. I'll be able to move through all my food forest within a couple of hours, and I will fertilize and I will mulch them, and then I'll be back in the hammock doing yoga, doing something else. Yeah, deer don't eat it. Deer don't eat pawpaws, right? Especially an established pawpaw. If you're in a region where pawpaws don't exist and you plant a new one, the deer will be curious, but they're only going to try it and then they're not going to eat it. All right. Groundhogs? They haven't messed with mine. Yeah. No, we got everything, man. We got everything. Raccoons do like the fruit. Opossums like the fruit. Deer, not so much. Bears sometimes come through and knock them over, but we got everything, and we get lots of fruit. Every habitat's different. And there's our house. Circular straw bale house, round wood timber framed from our woods. You can see why it took me 4 years. This is our pawpaw. We have a pawpaw festival every 3rd Saturday in September. It's next weekend, but it's sold out. It sells out every year. It's an awesome opportunity to actually come and see all of these things that I'm talking about. Our site's like a botanical garden. It's like a permaculture botanical garden. I've got so many species and examples of all this there, and tons of pawpaws. I have at least 100 pawpaw trees, more than 30 cultivars. Our fest is obviously the pawpaw's the poster child, but you're going to get to see a lot of great examples there. Just high vibes, great high vibes. My beautiful wife at our Pawpaw Fest. We have 2 kids too, which are growing up in this life, so future permaculture ninjas. I have lots of online resources aside from my 2 books, courses, just tons of stuff about everything that I do. I've been digitalizing it over the last couple of years. These are both my books. This one's, everything I do is how-to, short on philosophy, like how do you do this, and these are all things that I've done. So Edible Landscaping with a Permaculture Twist can show you how to build those swales, hugelkultur beds, build herb spirals, earthen ovens, uncommon, easy to grow fruits. It's an international success. It's been 12 years now. It's done really well. The love of pawpaws. I had to write a book because I said pawpaws are that awesome. I released this in 2019. It is everything pawpaw, but then it also talks about establishing and creating these conditions, using low input. So it's also got a lot of design aspects in it as well. And this is my website, Ecologia, ecologiadesign.com. It's got a ton of free resources on it, a lot of information. It's actually going to blow you away if you go there. There's a lot there to learn from and engage with. My social medias. If you're on Instagram, I'm on @permaculture ninja, and also YouTube would be my name and Edible Landscaping. You can find me and stuff that I'm doing. I'm putting it out there quite a bit these days. For now, that could always change. So yeah, that's it. I'll answer some questions.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I don't understand the Judd.
Oh, sorry. She's wanted to understand better the cross-pollination, and basically You just need two genetically different pawpaws. That could be two different seedlings, period. Doesn't matter.
The same cultivar.
Well, a cultivar is not a seedling. So a seedling means it's grown from seed and never cloned, never grafted. A cultivar means it's grafted or cloned. It's a clone, right? So if you have a grafted tree, you have to have two different types, like a PA Golden and a mango. If it's two seedlings, it doesn't matter what they are. Even if they came from the same fruit, they will cross-pollinate each other when you grow them out.
The type of plants that you were saying that are good for nitrogen.
Nitrogen fixing in the leguminous family, typically the leguminous family, the pea family, it depends on your site, if you have a bunch of animals eating everything, if you have a small, more intimate site, you could do lupins. You could do false blue indigo, baptisia. That's different than the one I'm talking about. Or you can go bigger in Eleagnus family, gummies. Big fan of those. If you have autumn olives growing, those are nitrogen fixers. Those things are all stars. You could plant next to them and you could chop and drop them. They're not invasive if you use them. All right, what else? Yes?
Chop and drop, are you chopping it down to the ground and ending it?
It depends. No. It'll. If you're chopping and dropping something, it's going to be a species that will rejuvenate. That'll pop back up for you. I mean, no. I mean, you can. Depends. I mean, like willows and these in false indigo bush, you can go pretty low. It depends on the time of year that you do it. But a lot of plants will pulse themselves. Like if they're soft perennials, they do it anyway. You can just kind of interject and speed that up. Yeah, but I mean, all these plants, the plants you don't want that's there, it's organic matter. Go chop it and drop it and feed your plants with it. It's better than like buying, from this linear system, and bringing it in. Have it and use it right there where you got it. Yeah. Chips. What chips? Yeah, he's asking about wood chips. Ideally, you let any kind of wood chips sit for a little while because they just have natural tannins in them, and you want that to kind of leach out. It's not so important if you've got established trees, but if you have like a really young tree, or if you're working in your garden or something, you want those to leach out, especially anything with like, cypress or even some of the oaks and things like that. Just give them some time. I always get wood chips dumped in the shade, and I just leave them there for a while, and then I'll come out and then I'll use them. But I mean, yeah, that's great. That's the trick. It's almost as simple as wood chips. People don't want to believe it's that simple, but it is. Yeah.
Is there any variety that's easier to grow than others?
Any variety, cultivar that's easier to grow than others. Some have more vigor. Sunflower is an old, strong cultivar. Mango grows really strong. Potomac grows really strong. A couple of my favorites for productivity and consistency are Neil Peterson's, Shenandoah, Allegheny. Those are like two of my top, that I recommend just because they're consistent bearers and growers and they have different flavor profiles. Yeah, those are some faves.
Pawpaw, nothing. When does pawpaw food generally harvest?
Now, this for the Pawpaw belt. It's here. It starts down in Louisiana in August, and then go all the way up into New England in October. So we're in the heart of it now. This is it, Pawpaw season. I've got my books over there. I'm signing them, selling them. They're very practical. You can get everything that I talked about and more out of them. So thank you guys again.